All right, welcome everybody. My name's Herbert, and this is another Tesla Today episode. Today's a good session because we've got an Uber bull with us. I want to ask him all of his opinions on the things that have been happening with Tesla in the last 3 months specifically. There's a change in sentiment, there's a new partnerships, Tesla AI, the revised Model 3. So we've got Warren Redlich with us. He has his own YouTube channel called Warren Redlich, very popular. Wanted to get his opinion because he's not just another Tesla investor. He's an Uber bull, somebody who's been studying Tesla for a long time, has gone all in on Tesla, and has different opinions than most people. So welcome, Warren. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. It's going to be fun.
Okay, good. So let's get started with kind of like your opinion. What has happened to the sentiment, right? So we've had a terrible year, 2022. Stock fell significantly. When it was terrible like that, the community sounded like you could kind of see the separation between the different kinds of investors, the short-term traders versus the long-term investors. It just became more clear. But in the last 3 months, the sentiment has changed, and in a good way for Tesla. What was your thinking? Did the sentiment change, or what was it that triggered it, that moved it up?
Sure. I think sentiment is hard to measure. I definitely think there are people who are, I would say, almost like fair weather friends, or they're sort of they're fans when things are going well, and they're not fans when things aren't going well. And even when things are going well, if they're not going well by their standards. So, like for me personally, my sentiment hasn't changed. Tesla's been doing great the whole time.
Yep.
The stock may be up and down, and there's reasons why the stock is up and down, but the underlying fundamentals of the company haven't changed significantly over the last year or two. I think the thing that distinguishes the way I see things from the way a lot of other people see things is I have particular models of this is how I see the company going over, let's say, the next 7, 8, 10 years. Right? I call it the battery revenue model, the robotaxi model, the bot model. I have specific ways of modeling. This is where I think the company is going. And I think a lot of people don't see it the same way. They don't model it in the same way, or they don't model it at all. They just they're looking at, like, sentiment is driven by short-term things that you're seeing or hearing. Modeling is driven by, okay, this is the fundamentals of the company. This is what I see the company doing in 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And like for me, I'm an effectively all in conviction investor where I see it. Like I believe that I see the future of the company. Not perfectly, could be up a little bit or down a little bit from where I'm thinking. I have sort of a base model and then some, optional like robotaxi or bot models where things go crazy. And if you don't have that kind of model and you're just like, well, they make great cars. They have this cool stuff. Elon's great. If you have that as your background, I don't think you should be investing the way I do in Tesla if you don't see it long term the way I do, or some other way if you're not seeing it long term. If you're just going on the flow of the market, then it wouldn't make sense to be all in on the company.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So as you know, I'm an all-in Tesla investor myself, and I'm a long-term bull. So I, as a product manager, startup person, CEO of previous companies, I always look at things as the company and the product. And just like you, I don't really care so much with the stock gyrations that it will do. It's part and parcel. All companies will do that. All great companies will have stocks going up and down. But you're a little different because you do look at very far, whereas I'm kind of like, I look at 1 to 3 to 5 years as well. I'm not saying you're not, but I'm just saying that that's kind of like, I expect that stock will go up or down in a year, and that's perfectly fine. So for me, when it happened last year in 2022, disappointed, but I'm like, close my eyes. I know deep in my heart this company is great. And so, like you said, our sentiment hasn't changed. I like that answer. So at the same time, let's talk about the things that have happened. And I'm curious about your opinion on the partnerships. So, the two partnerships, Ford and GM, now everybody's falling on board superchargers. Did you expect that to happen this year, or yeah?
No, I did not. And I do think that as far as sentiment goes, the real driving impact of that was, you have, I think Jim Farley in particular, the Ford CEO.
Yes.
Taking a step back, part of the sentiment issue was there's an underlying story that's been pushed by, I'll call it nefarious forces, the big oil, big auto, whatever, Tesla Q. There's been this underlying story that Teslas aren't very good. That Tesla doesn't make good cars, the Teslas are unreliable, they got poor fit and finish, that they're not really that special of a car company. Just wait. The big boys are coming, Toyota, Volkswagen, Mercedes, whatever.
Yeah.
All these other companies are coming with their EVs and they're going to beat Tesla. And in one fairly short period of time, the Ford CEO demolished all of that negative sentiment and basically admitted Tesla's better than us at charging. Tesla's better than us at software. I don't know if he said Tesla's better than us at manufacturing, but there have been other voices. Like Toyota just announced they're going to start using gigacastings in like 2027 or 2028. Like Tesla's been using them for 2 or 3 years now. So there's been this wave of information from the auto industry basically acknowledging that Tesla is number one. Like, not that they're number one in sales today, but they are the number one car company of the future, and they all see it. And the battle is no longer who's the Tesla killer that's coming that's going to beat Tesla. The battle is really who can survive and who can try to be number two or number three. Because there's room. Yaman Tasdivar, the value analyst, he's been saying there will be no other car companies. And I don't think he's necessarily wrong, but I think there's room if somebody can survive for someone else to make EVs and take the number two spot or the number three spot. And if Ford was the number two spot in the world, that would actually be ahead of where they are now. So if Jim Farley said, "Hey, you know what? We're not going to beat Tesla, but let's follow on their footsteps, or follow in their coattails, and let's see if we can try to keep up." That's not a bad strategy for surviving into the future versus the strategy of, "Oh, we're going to beat Tesla," which is just completely ridiculous.
Yeah, for GM to say that their targets are 2030, and then today we're hearing Toyota yet again saying that they're going to have 25 cars by a certain year, and I think people are realizing that they just keep saying this over and over and over again, and they just keep punting it out further and further. So the combination between the partnership with Tesla, but also them admitting, both GM but Ford, and now Toyota saying that the Model Y is a work of genius. All these things are adding up, like you're saying. But you said you didn't think that it was going to happen sooner, or you were saying, yeah. Why did you not think?
I did not see the charging thing coming through that quickly. It's been obvious to most of us, and there's certain YouTubers who cover this. They go, I don't go to other charging stations. I only go to Tesla superchargers or Tesla destination chargers or charge at home. I I don't have a CCS adapter. I go to J1772 charging. Like the library. There's like several free chargers in Cape Canaveral, and I lived in Cape Canaveral, and I would charge for free once in a while. Just when it was like particularly convenient to do so, I would like park there overnight and come back to my car the next morning. The car would be charged because J1772 is slow. So I don't have that experience with Electrify America, EVgo, whatever the other charge point. But there are YouTubers who cover it, and it's pretty universal that the experience is shoddy. So I didn't think it mattered that much to Ford and GM because they're just not making that many EVs. My best guess is that Ford has been making a fair number of EVs. They're having a fair amount of success with the Mach-E and the Lightning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Certainly, other people are critical of the Mach-E. I think the Mach-E is a pretty good car. I think the Lightning, everyone I've talked to who's seen a Ford F-150 Lightning loves it. I think it looks pretty cool. They're having a fair amount of success selling them, and they're probably hearing back from their customers, "Hey, these charging solutions suck." And credit Jim Farley for saying, "You know what? If we're going to go down this road, and I think we have to, we got to come up with a better charging solution than what we have now. And these other guys aren't going to deliver what we need, and Tesla can't." So I give Jim Farley for credit for seeing that. I didn't expect an auto industry CEO to see it. I mean, I think this is the kind of thing that got Herbert Diess fired. Herbert Diess said something positive about Elon, and he was fired within a few months. The stakeholders in big auto do not want to acknowledge Tesla's strength. And I think the difference is Ford is really still controlled by the Ford family to some extent. So maybe they're a little more free to do things like that. But I did not see that coming, though.
Yeah, I do think that the jig is up. I mean, these competitors, these legacy auto, has been trying to say these things for so long because they need to maintain. They're the big brand. They're a big, strong brand, and they cannot say, if you're Coke, you don't talk about Pepsi. But when Pepsi becomes better than you for several years now, and it's very clear, and now you're fighting for your life, you got to go. So, what kind of do you think now that this has happened? Are you thinking that there's going to be more partnerships? Is it going to be a flood of this? What's your expectation? What might happen?
Well, I think the other charging companies are starting to acknowledge, and the vendors who work in that space are starting to acknowledge that they will support NACS, the North American Charging Standard, or the Tesla Standard. um, that those dominoes have already started to fall. I mean, it'll take a few years for the Biden administration to catch on because they're still pushing CCS, but I think we're seeing that. I honestly think that this is actually a small event in terms of the future of Tesla, the company. It's a big effect on sentiment. It doesn't change how many vehicles Tesla is going to make next year. It doesn't change when FSD beta is going to go to out of beta and you don't have to pay attention anymore, right? There's certain events that we're looking forward to. It doesn't change when bot becomes viable. It doesn't change how many megapacks Tesla is going to make. The things that are real fundamentals to Tesla's business, this story had zero effect on. Superchargers are not a major, maybe they're 1% of revenue. Two, maybe. In terms of profit, I'm pretty sure they're less than 1% of Tesla's profit. Long term, I think there's a significant business potential for Supercharger, but once the Robotaxi network goes live, the value of Supercharger revenue from other EV companies charging is like ridiculously trivial. So I think it's cool. I think the potential for other companies to now start looking at other partnerships with Tesla might matter. But again, Elon's position is we want to help these other companies succeed so we don't have a monopoly, so we don't get regulated. He doesn't say it, but he doesn't really want Tesla regulated like a monopoly, right? So, and I think he genuinely believes it's valuable to have other companies survive and produce EVs and have a competitive space rather than just a dominant monopoly space. So I think Tesla's plan is if somebody says, hey, we need help with this, Tesla will partner with them and do it at cost. So it's not going to be a profit source for Tesla to help other automakers. But just like they open source their patents, it's like, we just think this is the right way to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, at that Jim Farley space with Elon, he said twice, he brought up, hey, we'd love to partner with you beyond just the superchargers into software. And so for me, the partnerships that has kicked off now has exploded with superchargers. Great, like you said, minor, big deal, but minor. But the other big deal for Tesla is the partnerships beyond superchargers. And there's so many.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the fact that other car companies have maybe 100 different software vendors on each car, there's 100 different. I'm making up a number. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 200. But
Jim Farley said 150.
yeah, okay. So there's more than 100 different software vendors that they're relying on, and Tesla has one. Tesla does their own software. The entire car software is one thing, and I think it would be a lot of work to take the F-150 Lightning and make it all run on one set of software. And I could see Tesla saying, "Hey, we're going to spin off a business of vehicle software that." Or it's just going to be an in-house business and we're providing software services to other car makers. You have to justify the investment in expanding that and the time that it's going to take. But if it makes EVs, if it accelerates the transition to sustainable energy, then that's Tesla's mission. Tesla's mission isn't make as much money as we can. Tesla's mission is accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. If we don't get to sustainable energy or we take too long to get to sustainable energy, it's bad for all of humanity. And people don't recognize that Tesla is a mission driven company. And, they make money, they're going to be very successful, and they're going to make a lot of money, but in a lot of ways they can really help other companies, and they can afford to give up a moat here or there because they have so many moats.
Do you think that they would ever partner with batteries or the skateboard or minerals? with somebody?
Well,
Or some people are saying that it's just not going to happen because they need all of it. They're growing so fast, there's just not going to have a chance to
yeah,
do that.
I don't see that happening. As long as Tesla needs everything that they're making for all the products that they want to make. So I don't see how that would make sense for Tesla. Like you said, any um, any car they want to build, they pretty much like they're struggling to get enough batteries together to make Semi, to
Right.
make enough Model Ys and Model 3. All the vehicles they're making. There's people worried they're not going to have enough 4680s for Cybertruck. They originally intended Semi to run on 4680, and now it's running on, I think, 2170s. The battery cell size, for those who aren't familiar with that. So I think there's some issues. Can they put it all together? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. So a fun topic I think we should talk about, because I know that you have a very different opinion on this than I do, is the potential upcoming Model 3. They call it Project Highland, the revised Model 3. Many of us have been seeing, spy shots of this driving around, being tested. We've actually seen real photos, or we think it's real photos, of the actual revised Model 3. And we've heard that both Giga Shanghai and Fremont has applied for demolition of their production line. They've been, shutting down their production lines, slowing down, because there's potential for this revised Model 3. Many of us are thinking this is going to come in June or July, because the original Model 3, the cost to build was so high, and it actually cost them cheaper to make the Model Y. Now they're going to make sense for them to create a cheap Model 3. It's been around for so long now, 5 years. It's time for them to revise it. So, why would you say that you actually don't think it's real? Or maybe I'm completely misunderstanding what you've been saying about it.
Well, I'm going to say it this way. I've seen so many different stories about what Project Highland is that I don't really know what people are claiming Project Highland is. You just gave a version of the story.
Okay.
Okay, that they're going to manufacture it in a less expensive manner, as if, and I'm sorry, as if Tesla hasn't been constantly re-engineering how they make Model 3, 13 changes a week for the last, since 2017 or 2018. You can watch, you've seen Joe Justice talk about it. You've seen Sandy Monroe talk about it. They are constantly re-engineering how they make Model 3. They're constantly re-engineering how they make every vehicle. But let me ask you, would you agree with me that many people have many different opinions about what Project Highland is? There's no one uniform story. This is Project Highland.
Well, nobody knows. Like you said, it's all conjecture. But I think it's fairly obvious in my mind that, yes, they're making small changes, but they can't do bigger changes without changing the production line completely, like the gigacastings. It's just one example of something that is so obvious that they need to do, that whether it's just both front and rear or just the rear. Uh, so but you've seen the cars. There's too many things that are true that you've seen it. So it's no longer conjecture. It's not this rumor. We're seeing it. So you're saying that those
Well,
aren't
wait,
real, those cars?
is Project Highland a refresh of the headlights, or is Project Highland rear castings, or is Project Highland?
Gotcha.
No, so let me answer the question though. Let me answer the question more directly. I just published a video this morning. We're on Thursday, June 15th, as we're talking right now.
Yeah.
I finished the video yesterday, shared it with my supporters on the various, support platforms, Patreon, etc., Twitter subscribers, and I published it this morning to the public. And go back to the Q4 2022 earnings call. That's what that video is. And I went through. There was a question that Zach Kirkhorn and Drew Baglino and Roshan Thomas responded to. About the question was from Pierre Farragut about
Mhm.
Tesla's cost of goods sold per vehicle that had been as low as 36,000. It had risen to 42,000. It had come back to 40,000. And when do you think you're going to get it back? To 36,000, if ever. And Zach Kirkhorn starts off with, well, our cost of goods sold is high because of ramping Giga Berlin and Giga Texas, neither of which makes Model 3,
Mhm.
right? The,
Mhm.
the biggest thing, the first thing he cited
Mhm.
was Giga Texas and Giga Berlin having high ramp inefficiencies. The second thing he mentioned was the cost of lithium, which does not
Mhm.
differentiate between a Project Highland Model 3 and a regular Model 3. And there was extensive discussion about changes, like Drew Baglino's going through. These are some changes that we can see making. We're seeing some additional cost efficiencies we can pull out of the 3Y platform, not the Model 3, the 3 and Y platforms. And I think the great, and he specifically mentioned that they see spots where they can reduce performance, unnecessary performance or content to save on cost. And what clearly follows from that is the long range Model 3, which dropped 25 miles of range, right? They decided Model 3 long range doesn't need to have 358 miles of range, 333 miles of range is enough. And that probably saves them 8% on the cost of batteries in the vehicle. So if there's this big refresh of Model 3 coming, right? And I don't think they've delivered one of these new long range Model 3s yet, right? Because they had Model 3 orders in the pipeline for the 358 mile range one that I think they were waiting for that pipeline to clear, because they weren't taking new orders. So I think they were waiting for that pipeline to clear, because it was such an insane bargain to get 358 miles of range in a Model 3 for what they were selling it for. So why would they release a new vehicle that doesn't fit with anything anyone's saying about Project Highland right before going to Project Highland?
Yeah,
And why wouldn't they say anything in the earnings call in January? 5 months ago, less than 5 months ago, they had an earnings call. They're talking about how to get more cost out of the 3 and Y platform. And they didn't think they would get back to the $36,000 cost of goods sold by the end of 2023 because of the price of lithium, because of rampant efficiencies, that they're getting closer, they're making progress. I mean, I think that was Zach, and then I think Drew and Roshan were a little more optimistic about getting cost of goods sold down. If you kind of have to read between the lines for that, that's how it felt. Like Roshan was like, well, I think we can squeeze more out of the supply chain. But how much bigger of a, if you're going to radically redesign Model 3 to dramatically reduce cost, then you're going to overshoot that and you're going to bring the cost of goods sold down below $36,000 a vehicle. None of that optimism was there. So,
so I think
either what you're telling me is that they didn't know about Project Highland yet in January, that Drew Baglino and Lars Moravi and Zach Kirkhorn and Roshan Thomas and Elon didn't know about Project Highland less than 4 months ago, or Project Highland isn't real.
Well, the other option there, which is most likely in my mind, is they know about it. Of course, they knew about it, and they don't want to say anything about it because they don't want anybody to cannibalize a current Model 3 until the moment, the hour, the day. Where did I get that from? I keep hearing this. I think this is Jeff Lutz who says this. The moment, the hour, the day that they're about to launch this thing, you'll hear about it. They're not going to tell you. In fact, they even said the opposite things, right? They said, which is feeds to your narrative, which is we've already reduced the Model 3 by 30%. They showed that slide. They also said that they're not going to, they decided that they're not going to, for the unboxed model, it needs to be a brand new factory. I'm not going to shut down a production line. And yet, here we are, 2 production lines in Shanghai and Fremont. Now, you can argue, like you said, well, this is just regular maintenance and revisions. Right. It could be just, you might be correct. This is all conjecture on our part. But I think that so in my mind, here's why I'm really there's a reason why they might do what I'm saying. Is because the Model Y is the #1 best-selling vehicle in the world, and the cost of it's so low because of the gigacastings and other things they've done to it that they weren't able to do in Model 3. Model 3 is still based on the 2018, plus every year they make changes to it. Okay, that's why they reduced the price by 30%. But the cost of making the Model 3, why is the price of the Model 3 and the Model Y so close to each other? And because of that, they need to put the Model 3 into its own segmentation that's in between the new compact car and the Model Y. Unless you believe that just like the Model S and the Model X, they're going to just phase that out. And eventually, some people are saying they might just probably phase out the Model 3 because now you got the Model Y and you got the compact car. I think that there's a segmentation, the sedan, that is, I just did a whole show on this to show the how much market share the global sales for sedans are. And so if you bring the Model 3 down by another $5,000, the TAM goes up and it fits very nicely in between the compact and all that. So that's what I'm thinking they're doing. Is they're going to do the giga castings, release this with $5,000 cheaper price, even than what it is now, and then make the Model 3 a global sales behemoth. It's going to be second to, well, it will compact, it'll be Model Y, then Model 3. It will and then Cybertruck. It's like, yeah.
Okay, so I think you'll probably agree with me that Model S and Model X are not particularly important to the future of Tesla.
Right. Agreed.
Okay, and I'm putting Model 3 in that category.
Okay, so you do.
Model
Okay.
S was hugely important for Tesla's early years to grow the company. Model X was somewhat important, but in some ways a misstep. Model 3 then took the torch from Model S and Model X and led the way and really demonstrated we can make a high volume vehicle. And then Model Y came along and it clipped Model 3's wings. That anybody was thinking about buying a Model 3, spend a little bit more money, you get a Model Y.
Exactly.
Now, kind of what you were just saying, the next generation vehicle is going to come in and it's going to undercut Model 3. So the niche for Model 3 is shrinking. You can see that Model S and Model X was, I think, reached 100,000 units a year at one point, and then it dipped to around 70,000 a year, and I'm not sure it's even going to hit 70,000 this year, where Tesla's going to sell close to 2 million vehicles this year. So 70,000 is, a drop in the bucket compared to 2 million. It's just not the future of the company. So I think one of the telltale signs that you knew that Model 3 was not the future of the company is when they built Giga Texas and they built Giga Berlin, there's no Model 3 lines. They never planned Model 3 lines
and
for Giga
they
Texas.
need to create a new version of it. And my theory is that it has to be a sporty version so that it's not this, it's a cheap car, but sporty.
Have you driven a Model 3 Performance?
I have a Model 3 right now. Yeah, I love the performance. Yeah, no, I can understand.
It's an insane performance vehicle.
But the looks has to be very sporty, like an M3, like a 3 Series, so that it's completely separated.
I think it looks
from
sportier than an
the
M3.
compact. You know what I'm saying? But it's that's the theory that I have. Yeah, I have no idea. There's no concrete evidence that I can say no for sure or you're wrong. But it still makes sense to me that they're not going to abandon Model 3.
Okay, I'm not saying they're going to ban. Let me be clear about what I'm saying. The future of the company right now, the short to medium term future of the company is Model Y, Cybertruck, and the next generation vehicle, and then Megapack and Bot and FSD and all that. But within the vehicle future of the company, Model Y matters.
So let me ask you that question because if you look, and I did the whole show. I showed segmentation of cars. Number one is SUV globally and the US. SUV massive, like 40%. Then it becomes sedans, Corollas and Camrys. Then you've got trucks are like tiny. So why would they
globally
do
they're
a
tiny?
Truck?
Globally they're tiny, not in the US.
But so yeah. Anyway, so like you were just saying, they're going to sell 2 to 5 million of this segment, the SUVs. But why would I worry about less than 100,000, a million? So I think that sedans are it's like 30%, and globally it's 35, 40%. So it's like under SUVs. So I just don't think you would abandon that one. I would find anything. I'd abandon the truck market. But
I'm not saying they're abandoning the Model 3. I want to be clear about what I'm saying. What I'm saying is in the short to medium term, Tesla has limited engineering resources. And the engineering resources are probably no longer focused on Model Y, except to the extent that they're trying to get the structural pack engineering down to make that work. I think they are still devoting significant engineering resources. If you listen to Drew, they are still devoting significant engineering resources to taking the structural pack Model Y from a C implementation of an A concept to a B or A implementation of that concept, right? So that's a significant commitment of engineering resources. Getting Cybertruck up and running is a significant commitment of engineering resources.
Huge.
The next generation vehicle is a significant commitment of engineering resources. You've got Semi, you've got Roadster. If you go back years ago to the Third Row Tesla podcast interview where I think it was Gali or Omar asked about a VTOL jet,
Yes.
Elon said, we just don't have, we don't have enough engineers to do everything I'd love to do. So when you look at Model 3 and say Model 3 is around, it's probably less than 500,000 units a year. Maybe it's around 500,000 units a year. I have to Troy Tesla's numbers, but it's a ballpark of 500,000 a year. it's not going up. Okay, and when the next generation vehicle platform comes in, it's going to cut into Model 3 sales. So here's the path I see for Tesla is they're going to continue to improve on Model Y. They're going to continue to improve in some way on Model 3. They're going to commit a lot of resources to getting CyberTruck up and running. They're going to commit a lot of resources to getting the next generation vehicle platform up and running. When they have engineering resources available, my next step would be to recognize Model 3's niche is somewhat limited, at least for now, and I would re-engineer S and X. If you could get Model X in particular, if you could get a version of Model X without Falcon Wing doors, without power doors, you defeature it to some extent, but you make it significantly larger than Model Y, and practically larger than Model Y. Because really, in some sense, Model X is not that much bigger in a practical sense than Model Y. The third row is more usable, right? There's somewhat more cargo area. But if you said we're going to re-engineer Model X to make it like Model Y but bigger, and we're going to take out some of the features that make it expensive and increase warranty claims like the Falcon Wing doors and the power doors and everything. If you can deliver a Model X for under $80,000 and get a $7,500 tax credit, what does that do for the TAM of Model X? Which I didn't realize this until just a few days ago. Model X sells more than Model S. Even though Model S is less expensive, and Model S is, as far as I'm concerned, arguably the best car Tesla makes. Model X outsells it. So if you could take the $100,000 or so Model X and make a version of it that sells for under 80 grand and get people a $7,500 tax credit, that would sell in much high. You'd go from 100,000 S's and X's, and maybe you can make a Model S that sells for under 55, right, and get a $7,500 tax credit on that. And what does that do to the TAM for S and X? So I think there's a bigger opportunity there to improve S and X, and then you take the engineering resources and you do a complete redesign of 3 and Y. But like my timing would be, I would worry about Model 3 later, because Model 3, people are invested in Model 3. I own a Model 3. I mean, I own an X, but I also own a 3. People are so deeply emotionally invested in Model 3 that they want to believe that the 3 is the future of the company. It's like, there's no plans to build a Model 3 in Berlin. Think about that.
I know.
Why, if the Model 3 is so important, why aren't they building a Model 3 in Berlin?
Okay. So, okay, I got that's so much to answer here. It's so fun. This is fun. Thank you so much for. I am so confused with what Tesla's doing. And I do not think they're going to go and do S and X, everything you just said. I think there's a huge market for third row SUV. Corey Steuben has been telling me that. The thing is, why would Tesla have so many different production lines? Like, why would they have the S and X? They have the 3 and Y. Now they've got the Cybertruck, which is completely brand new. Then they're going to do the whole unboxed model. You're not going to do this. You're going to drop the S and X. So I don't agree with what you're saying. This would support what you're saying, which is drop the 3, keep the Y because it's successful. You're going to have the Cybertruck. They committed to that. And I keep saying there's no way in my mind that the unboxed model will not be based on a Cybertruck platform. So in my mind, the unboxed model has to be similar in many ways to the Cybertruck. And then from there, it's modular, so they can create a van. They can create a version of an SUV, but doesn't look like a Y, but it's like a version of that looks like a Cybertruck. It's going to be the robotaxi platform. So I just can't imagine they would create a Cybertruck platform and then completely just have that for just the trucks. Now I'm going to have this whole new thing. It's like, what?
All right, I got to reveal that I met Franz von Holzhausen.
So did I.
At the Plaid event, and I asked him about Cybertruck and whether they
I did too.
Whether they were going to make other vehicles in the Cybertruck style.
Okay. Yeah.
And he said that Cybertruck was purposefully engineered for a very specific purpose, and that he didn't think other vehicles fit the purpose that Cybertruck was designed for. That
he said exactly that.
There's a lot of function.
Wow. Okay.
It's a few years ago now. I don't remember the exact words, but that's what I remember of the conversation. Is that he seemed to downplay the idea that there would be other vehicles. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious you could make an SUV on the Cybertruck platform. I'm not saying that won't happen, but the idea that they would make a smaller vehicle based on the Cybertruck platform with the stainless steel exoskeleton. I don't think that's in the works. I did want to mention also, I think Cybertruck is going to cut into Model X sales. I think Cybertruck and Model X line up a fair bit, and like the people who buy Model X might want a Cybertruck. Like I personally drive a Model X and I want a Cybertruck.
Yeah, Corey Steuben has been pointing out that the Cybertruck is not just an exoskeleton. It looks like it's both exoskeleton and, so it can be, we'll find out. This is exciting. It just, you know what I mean? Odd that they're going to have such a
Well,
brand new, completely
Corey
different.
said it's not an exoskeleton, and then like a week or two later, Elon was talking somewhere, and he not responding to Corey at all, would just mention the exoskeleton design. So I love Corey, and
It's a combination, though.
I can't say he's wrong, and maybe he's changed his tune since he said it's not an exoskeleton, but I don't know.
He was just looking at, you take a skeleton out, and you can see that it's still, pretty strong inside. Okay, that was a fun conversation. Thank you. I mean, this is, like you said, we're all conjecture. This is fun theories. So tell me about the, you're big on FSD. I guess in my perspective, in the last year, everybody said that Tesla's a car company. The vast majority of the revenue is car company. And they would go, the reason I'm investing in Tesla is because of a car company. And oh, by the way, FSD, bots, Dojo, all these things are just, they call it option play. If they take off, great. But
Call
who
option in
knows?
the future, yeah.
It could be 10 years from now, nothing. But in my mind, personally, as an investor, I don't think of them as options anymore. I've seen huge progress in every aspect, specifically the bot, much faster than we all think, that we're
Yes.
almost to the point where, are you still thinking at this point that it's like 5 to 10 years away? You know how when you ask somebody, 3 years ago, I was in an airplane, and even my brother, and I said, what's the likelihood of robotaxi? This is actually not even 3 years ago, the year that I started doing beta. And they all said, not in my lifetime. Not in my lifetime. Guaranteed not in my lifetime. And then now, if you ask somebody, it's no longer, they'll go, oh, yeah, it'll happen, but it'll be 10 years from now. 10 years. It's no way I could see, have you seen the progress in the last several years? It's just not going to happen. Now you're hearing more and more people say, maybe 2 or 3 years. Certainly not going to happen this year. No, that's impossible. ChatGPT moment comes. If I ask the same question in January, I've been saying this to people, if I in January ask you, what's the likelihood that AI is going to get to the point that it's going to be able to, be the best lawyer, pass the MCAT, be able to trick people to thinking that, that they're human, right? The Turing test. And they would say, 99% of them would say, not this year, never. Then it happens. Now, if you ask somebody, they're worried about consciousness, they're worried about the world going to be taken over by AI now, when the thing can't even do, a lot of things properly, yet they can see the path. I think the same thing we're there. So what's your thinking about this? Have you moved it up yourself? Are these still options?
I call it. I'll go with the theory of it's a call option. I just think the probability that FSD reaches, I I don't go with level 3, 4, 5 type stuff. What I go with is, um, at some point, I think within roughly the next year, maybe even this year, Tesla will say you no longer have to touch the wheel and you can look at your phone while FSD is driving. I think that's coming fairly. There's an intermediate stage before robotaxi. The
Mm-hmm.
intermediate stage before robotaxi is you have to sit in the driver's seat and you have to be ready to take over if the car tells you to. But you can look at your phone. You don't have to touch the wheel. You have a little bit more freedom in the car. We just need you there if something happens. The car is going to pull over and wait for you to take over. Right? You can't sit in the back seat. You can't let the car drive without a human in it. And then the next step after that is okay. You can let the car drive without a human in it. It'll go pick up your kids at school. Right? Um, it's really hard to predict, and I think James Douma is the best one to listen to on this stuff. I think he's demonstrated a better understanding of this than pretty much any other voice I've heard. It's really hard to know when it's going to cross a threshold. Like it's rising really fast, but we don't know. It's not that we don't know it's going up fast; it's that we don't know where the threshold is. So I think that it's very hard to know when we're going to get there. I can say, like, from my own experience driving, and I actually just downloaded the latest update last night. I haven't driven it yet. I'm now on 11.4.3. For me, what I would call safety interventions are almost non-existent. The idea that I have to intervene to stop it from crashing, it doesn't really happen anymore. It's like it makes lane changes I don't like. It slows down too much for a roundabout. Like, it used to not do roundabouts, right? It doesn't slow down as much as I'd like for a speed bump. It used to not slow down for speed bumps, right? The improvements are substantial, and it's hard for you and me to wrap our heads around. And I think it's something that the Tesla team is better able to wrap their heads around, is what are all the things that it's not doing well yet that it still needs to do better at? And I don't like. I know it doesn't do parking garages, right? It doesn't do actually smart summon yet. It doesn't. You can't really have the car come and get you, whatever. I think Elon said 11.4.4 is coming this week, probably to employees, and then it'll roll out over a few weeks. But I think version 12 is going to be a big jump. And I think one of the big things to look at is when you read the release notes, you keep seeing the improvements. And let me pull this up. I'm just going to pull this up on my phone right now. The release notes for you'll see when you see numbers like this.
Yeah.
Perception of lanes in city streets improved by 36%, forks improved by 44%, merges improved by 20%, and turns improved by 16%. This is when we talk about exponential improvement. It's like, well, if you improve 40% this time and 40% next time, or 20%, you keep improving by like more than 10% on these various functions. That's a big deal. And I'm sorry, I have a lot of thoughts on FSD, so you will see people talking about FSD and they think that interventions are the most important signal to Tesla about how to improve FSD. And then you read the release notes and you like,
They don't talk about intervention.
perception of lanes in city streets improved by 36%. That has nothing to do with interventions. Forks by 44%, merges. None of this has to do with you almost never see in the release notes interventions reduced by X%. Like, that's not how they're met. And James Dowman, I interviewed James Dowman once or twice, and I remember one time talking to him about this. He's like, no, interventions are one thing they're looking at, but they're measuring 1,000 things that they're looking at improving, and all these things are improving at an exponential rate. And that's a curve going up like this. We just don't know where it has to get to. And my gut hunch is that Elon, Ashok, the Tesla autopilot team, they have a much better sense of where they need to get to. And I think we're going to hit version 12 in a few months. And then you're going to iterate on version 12, and version 12 is the end-to-end neural nets. And I think that might be the one that breaks through. But if it takes 2 years longer than I think, for my long-term, if I'm looking 5 to 10 years out, it doesn't matter. What matters there is you need to produce as many vehicles as possible that are robotaxi capable, so that when you flick the switch, the robotaxi revenue starts and grows faster because you're starting from a higher base. Sorry,
yeah, I think
that was a long response. I'm not sure I answered your question.
No, you did. Exactly. So that's my point, right? People go, it's going to be forever, not my lifetime. Then they say 10 years. And now if it doesn't happen in a year, they're going, oh my God, see, it's never going to happen. It can happen in 2 years. And can you believe that we got the robotaxi in less than 3 to 5 years? Okay, I'll give you, it's 2015. You start talking about it. Fine. 8 years, we get robotaxi. Anyways, my point is that, like you said, rightly said, there's robotaxi regulation and actually do that. Then you said there's other milestones in between. For me, as an investor, I'm not discounting that there could actually be another milestone, which is just the ChatGPT moment, which is there is no robotaxi. They're not saying, oh, you can now drive without putting your hands on the wheel or stop looking at it. None of that has to happen before the stock can appreciate. All it needs is a moment when people realize it is inevitable this is happening. It's already there, and it's just a matter of time, but not as far away as everybody thinks now. Then they'll start piling in. And that's the moment that happened with ChatGPT, right? The app is not perfect. There's lots of mistakes it still makes, but people realize, oh my God, this is such a step change improvement. And I think that when there's a situation where all of a sudden many drives is so few, people start seeing it themselves. They go into people's cars they'll start investing. As soon as you walk into a Tesla today, you see it driving on its own, you're going to invest.
So I think that I don't think those two moments are different. I think that the Chat GPT moment is the moment they tell you you don't have to pay attention anymore.
Okay.
It's hard for me to see, because like I take people for rides and I've been taking people for rides for a long time. I remember back Halloween, not this past year, but the year before, I took people for an FSD beta ride, and one of the guys is a software guy. So it's a couple, and I took them for an FSD beta ride during Halloween with pedestrians on the street, driving through a neighborhood, and they were blown away.
Mhm.
Because you can see on the screen, it's seeing all these pedestrians. It's driving carefully through a minefield, basically, of pedestrians. You know, I think children walking on the streets in Halloween is probably your nightmare scenario for a self-driving car. And it was navigating it perfectly. And they had that wow moment. So I think generally speaking, people have the Chat GPT moment with FSD beta as soon as they sit in the car and see it for themselves. But not that many people have that. And so that's not really driving the stock. And then the problem with the Wall Street people is they don't, like, I have a model for FSD robotaxi generating, crazy profits, right? Their attitude is we can't model it until it starts happening. It's so straightforward in my mind, like how once you have a robotaxi, it's going to produce $50,000 a year in gross profit, if not more. And you're not going to be that far away from Tesla having 10 million of them. That's $500 billion a year in gross profit. And that's, I don't know, 25x on Tesla's gross profit last year. Right. So, but Wall Street doesn't model that. So I don't know that the Chat GPT moment happens the way that you and I think it should happen or will happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen that way. I'm just not sure that it happens that way. And I don't really
Anyways,
worry about, you brought it up, like, well, the stock price will rise when we have the Chat GPT moment. And like, I'm not worried about when the stock price is going to go up because I'm not selling next week. I'm not selling next year.
Yeah.
I think that there's a path to $5,000 a share. We're at $260 a share, $250 a share right now. There's a path to $5,000 a share, maybe $10,000 a share, maybe more. And it could be a flat curve that rises steeply at the end, and it could be a steady up, or it's more likely the way Tesla goes. It's like up, flat, down, up, flat. We're not going to get a smooth curve. And
it's not going to be linear. And I'll tell you the same thing we just talked about earlier in this call. Partnerships and analysts, these analysts, as institutional analysts, we're now hearing them talk about Tesla Energy. Piper just released their price target, and they said that they're going to put 135 on the car business and 135 on everything else, which includes FSD and energy and bot. And I'm like, bang! Finally, these analysts are starting to add. What's going to happen is it's going to be non-existent. Then one happens, and then they'll all pile on. Both partnerships as well as analysts starting to model after this. And that's where I'm saying that, yes, it's going to be far in the future, but it can happen very quickly. It can turn quickly.
Well,
these are moments that will happen.
You keep mentioning the partnerships. I think the partnerships change the sentiment, but I don't see a business model where the partnerships are a meaningful contribution to Tesla revenue or profit. Do you?
Well, software is 100% margin, and they're going to license FSD. It's going to be a moment. It'll happen probably, in my mind, this year, next year. There'll be another OEM. Some other company's going to say, "I'm going to license FSD," because they're dead in the water today. They have no other options today, and they need to start getting started with it. And
I agree that licensing FSD would be a big revenue event for Tesla.
Yeah, even just the first OEM to say that I am now partnered with Tesla for FSD is a huge, like a mind thing for people. Like, all we know is Hertz is the only one buying Tesla cars, but that's not the case. But we all know that because they're the first. It made a huge hit. It's going to happen, so that they can't hold off any longer. It's going to happen, and then that's all software and FSD. Like I said, it's 100% margin. Doesn't cost Tesla anything. And you heard Elon say twice to Ford, we'll partner with that. And so I think that this supercharger partnership is an API into the Ford app, which took them 8 months to negotiate, because Ford demanded, and it was a non-starter for them to not have the Ford app. But it makes the two software teams work together. They have a master service agreement. It's a skip and a jump at this point to add software, other software. ADAS is now going to be regulated by NHTSA. NHTSA is talking about a new law regulation that they're approving that says all cars must have full, I think emergency braking, and not every car has that ability. And so they're going to easily partner with Tesla to have that as part of its fulfillment of a law that's coming shortly. So, anyways, okay, we have about 10 minutes left. I just want to ask you about Elon, your favorite topic. You are, I don't know, man. You love Elon. You respect him so much, but you certainly are at the camp where you're like an Elon acolyte. I don't consider my one. Nothing Elon can do is wrong. I don't want to get into that conversation, but I guess the big point for me was when Elon obviously did Twitter. I know your position on Twitter. He did Twitter. He then said, "I've got a new Twitter CEO." And then when he came out and he said at Investor Day, he said, "I'm going to stay at Tesla and I'm going to make sure Tesla has its role to play in AI and general AI." To me, that was the biggest news for me because of two things, right? Elon and AI. And he's going to make that happen. So that's, I think, the biggest news. I think we should all consider that the biggest news for Tesla. What's your opinion about Elon?
I don't think it's news that Elon's staying at Tesla. I don't think Elon ever gave any indication he's doing anything other than stay at Tesla.
It's news that he just stomped out anybody else who's kept saying it was possible.
I think he's been saying that. I try to remember there was an incident, I don't know, a year ago at an earnings call or an investor day or something where somebody asked him how long he's going to stay at Tesla. And he said, he didn't see a time when he would leave Tesla, that he was, committed for the long haul, that, there's a mission here. The mission is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, and we're not done. This is one of the fundamental missions he sees in life, is to accelerate the transition to sustainable. He can't leave Tesla. I think that certain people who shall not be named exaggerated the impact of Elon's time at Twitter on Tesla. I don't, and they continue to do so. And I think they're wrong. I think that Elon's time at Twitter had nearly zero impact on Tesla. It's a denigration of the Tesla team when they say Elon can't take some time. And the practical reality is Elon historically has spent more time at SpaceX than he's spent at Tesla. And he has Neuralink, and he has the Boring Company, which are both very small in his time calendar. But he did put a lot of time into Twitter, and Tesla gets a lot of views on Twitter. The Tesla accounts and Elon's account talking about Tesla get many millions of views on tweets of substance about the vehicles. So I think the idea that Elon's time at Twitter somehow took away from what Tesla was doing, and Elon needs to get in there and get the Cybertruck going. It's like they don't have enough batteries for the Cybertruck yet. They've planned all this out. They have a great team. Like, I am the world's biggest Drew Baglino fan, except maybe for Jordan Gieske of The Limiting Factor. I think Drew Baglino, I think Zach Kirkhorn, I think Lars Moravi, Roshan, Ashok. They have a great team that knows what they're doing, and it is a massive slap in the face to the entire Tesla team to say Elon taking time at Twitter means that Tesla's not getting their job done. Tesla has been doing a phenomenal job. They've been executing extremely well the entire time. Again, I'm not sure I responded well to your question.
Well, I was going to ask. Yeah, I think just Elon. One part of Elon.
Anyway, sorry.
The other part is Elon and AI, and yeah.
Sorry, I do disagree with Elon on certain things. Like, I disagree with him on the concept of universal basic income. I think that is pure Marxism.
Yeah, of course.
And I've been publicly critical of that. I'm not publicly critical of Elon necessarily, but I've openly disagreed with him about universal basic income. I think he's probably wrong about the threat that AGI poses to humanity, and I've publicly said that. I think I'm not saying there's zero threat. Let me just run that down really quick. I believe we are headed towards a singularity in artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence. I believe when it first crosses the threshold to being smarter than human, it will still be dependent on humans to do things in the physical world. It will take time for AGI or ASI to figure out how to do things in the physical world without needing humans. And this is my Warren's semi-logical explanation for why this is not a problem. By the time it has developed enough resources in the physical world that don't rely on humans to be able to do the things it needs to do, it will be so much smarter than humans that we won't be a threat anymore. And the greatest danger is that AGI decides we're not important enough to worry about, and it leaves us behind as it goes off into the stars. It doesn't bother bringing us with it.
I think what Elon's saying is like an ant. When you're trying to redo your driveway, you don't think about the ants that you're killing. And it's the same thing at that point. Yes, not a threat, but I'm going to do something and it's going to inadvertently kill a lot of them. And then it's already happened, by the way. An AI was able to, needed to go to a website to make an e-commerce purchase. And then there was a CAPTCHA event. The AI on its own went and did Fiverr, found a human. The human did it for them. The human even asked the AI, "Are you a bot?" And he lied. The AI said, "No, I'm not a bot. I'm just I'm difficult. I have difficulty seeing, and I need you to help me see what this is." And it's like everybody's freaking out about that because here's an AI on its own did this. Anyways, yeah, that's not the conversation.
That's a good story.
Yeah,
But
it's not a conversation.
That's a one-off event. That doesn't mean that the AI can use Upwork. Look, the AI needs electricity.
We don't
Right?
know what AI is capable
Wait.
of doing.
Let me explain this. AI needs.
Yeah, no, that's what Elon said. All we have to do is shut the electricity down. They need a massive data center.
No.
It's not
They
like it
can't
can be
kill-
done in any place. Yeah,
The AI
get
can't kill us because it needs. It's not that we can shut it down. It's that it can't kill us because it needs us to keep the electricity flowing. It can't pump oil out of the ground, ship it to a refinery, and have the refinery pump out natural gas or petroleum or what mine coal. It can't put solar panels in place. It needs us to do things for now. Now, once it has its bot army, maybe the bots learn enough and the bots are able to do all the tasks that are needed and it doesn't need us anymore. But that's a long way away. And by the time we get there, it is so intelligent. Yeah, I kind of agree with the theory that some of the ants might get killed in the course of making the driveway, but it won't kill all the ants. Right, and you just want to make sure you're not
intending to kill all ants. Yeah. Anyways, I this is an example of okay. I kind of am not an expert in this space, so I'm going to trust Elon, who is arguably one of the most expert in this space than anyone in this world. People forget that all this is his expertise and history, and he started OpenAI. He knows everything that's going on. Tesla is the leader in regular vision AI. It's probably the leader in getting to general AI. People think it's ChatGPT, and it's not. Tesla has a faster chance to get to ChatGPT than ChatGPT can do the vision real world AI and combining them together to get the data.
Can I just address one point, which is if you're in the AI AGI space, one of the concerns that's raised by the people who are afraid of that AI is going to kill us all or whatever, there's this term called alignment, which Mark Zuckerberg repeatedly mentioned in his interview with Lex Friedman, by the way. And I didn't like the way he mentioned it. I think the reality is that alignment is a fiction. Like if you were trying to have AI get involved in the Ukraine-Russia dispute, well, what's the alignment? Is it aligning with Russia? Is it aligning with Ukraine? There's no correct alignment. You and I disagree on things. How do we have AI align? How do we align AI to resolve the dispute between you and me about something? A lot of humans have a lot of different goals in life. I don't think you can align AI with all of our goals.
Humanity.
But Elon has an answer that I think is absolutely brilliant. Like I disagree with him on some things. I agree with him on others. And his idea of truth GPT, that the alignment for AI should be to pursue truth. That if its mission is to pursue truth, then that doesn't necessarily align with the liars in humanity, right? There's people in humanity who don't want the truth out, right? But if your goal is truth, truth is pretty much a universal good. There are only evil people don't like truth. Is a way I would roughly say it. If you are opposed to truth, then you are fundamentally pursuing evil. So I think his idea of pursuing an AI that seeks truth is probably better than any alignment you could concoct by getting people on board with, saying, here's what we want the AI to do.
Generally, I think it's the right direction. But again, full of holes, right? What is truth? What is a fact? If you're based on the general, all the words that all of humanity has written on the internet, there's a ton of words written that is not, the victor decides what's written on there, what actually happened. Anyways, this is fun conversation. We can go out forever. Warren, thank you so much. But really appreciate this. This was great to get your thoughts as a Uber bull on all of these things. I've been curious for the last several months to catch up with you and see what you thought. We'll see what happens with Model 3. We're going to find out maybe a couple months. I hope you're wrong, and I think you hope you're wrong, but we'll see.
Well, wait. Wait, do you want to make it sort of a bet? I think the issue, I tried to do this with someone, was when does it have to be delivered by, and what does the content have to be? I think maybe it was Zach from Black Model 3. I don't remember exactly. It was like, tell me how do you measure the prediction that Project Highland is happening? Like, if they just add new headlights, is that Project Highland?
No, that's just a revision of the current Model 3. Project Highland to me is gigacasting. So it's a front, either both or just the rear. And it has to be repositioned as a new segment. And I think that in my case, I'm guessing it's a sportier, so that it has a growth rate. Like, I think you're saying that they might just do a revision and they're not trying to make it grow any further than this. I think it's a new segment. So I think that's my definition would be, if it truly fits in a nice new fragment, which means to me $5,000 cheaper, or just sportier, that it's clearly a different segment than Y and compact. Yeah.
Okay. We'll see in a couple months. I'm fairly confident we will not see a $35,000 Model 3 in 2 months.
Okay.
In the U.S.
Right. Yeah.
Before tax credits.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Warren. Everybody follow him on his YouTube channel, Warren Redlich, and Twitter. Very successful channel, doing really well. Thanks, everybody. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Hartford. Cheers.